Let's talk about our knife skills. Here's where things get fun. We get to hold a big knife and chop some stuff up. So this here is a chef's knife. This is an all-purpose knife. It's generally 8 inches or 10 inches long, and it's a little bit rounded at the tip so that you can cut with a nice rocking motion. All you're looking for in a chef's knife is something that feels good in your hand. It should be well balanced, and when you pick it up, you're going to say, yeah, I'm about to chop some stuff up right now. And that's all you want. It doesn't have to be expensive. Just get something that feels good in your hand, and it's going to last you a good long time. This is steel. You keep it sharpened, it's going to beat produce every time, so fear not. Along with your chef's knife, you're going to want 2 cutting boards. One is going to be non-porous. This is so that for the meat, so that the meat juices can't get soaked into there. You can wash it off easy. The other one can be porous or non-porous. I like a nice wood cutting board. This is for your plant matter, your produce. Keep these separated for cross-contamination reasons. And get one that you like, because you're going to spend a good amount of time with it. So this is just a refuse bowl that we're going to use for this demonstration here. So I want to run through the 2 knife skills that you're going to need. We're going to chop and we're going to mince. Mince and chop, chop and mince. That's all we're going to do all day long. We're not going to chiffonade anything. We're not going to julienne anything. You want to do those things, you do them on your own time. We're here to cut through our ingredients quick and get things seasoned up and prepped for the week. So you save that for your dinner parties, your fancy dinner parties. So our chef's knife, let's run through the 2 skills that we need. One is our chop. So when you're holding your chef's knife, you want to get a good firm grip on it. You see I got my pointer finger and my thumb right on the blade itself, and my 3 fingers are back here. That's a good strong grip on that blade, right? This is okay, but it's going to wear your arm out when you do that. Being back here is a little bit more flimsy, so just get choked up on it. Now, if you've been using a knife your whole life and you've got a way of holding your knife, there's no reason to unlearn it and try and learn this. But if you're a beginner or even intermediate, go ahead and readjust the way that you hold a knife and get it to this point. It's going to be the most efficient way to do it, and it's going to wear you out the least. So that's your hold. Now down here, let's take a look at what we're going to do with it. We are going to put it tip down, and we're going to push through, and we're going to lift up. And we're going to push through and pull back and lift up, push through, pull back and lift up. And we just do that over and over and over again. And the faster it goes, the more it looks like a locomotive wheels going down the track, right? It's called the locomotive. And that's your slicing motion. And we're going to be doing that whenever we want to chop anything up. We're trying to chop things up into bite-sized pieces. So that's saying you're making main ingredients out of that, something you're going to put a fork in and pop in your mouth later in the week. So that's what you're doing when you're chopping. Now, what is going on with this hand while the other hand is doing the chopping? This hand's job is to protect its little fingers. You want to keep your fingers to use them the next week and the week after that. So don't chop them all off in your first go, right? How are you going to protect your fingers? You're going to keep them curled away from the cutting blade in a little bit of a claw motion. So you know that game at the arcade where the claw goes down and tries to grab up the items, and then it comes back up and it's got its tines all together like that? That's the shape of the claw. And so you're going to drop your claw down on an ingredient. Boom, just like that. And when it hits, your fingers are going to bend a little bit, just right at the tips there. So the tips are on the product, and your fingers bend a little bit. Your fingers can be spread out like this, and they're bent right at the tips there, right? Or they can be all together with your thumb here. The thumb needs to be behind the guard, right? So this is your guard, and your thumb is safely behind it. So whether they spread out, the thumb stays behind, or it comes together, the thumb stays behind the guard. This is not the claw. This is you getting your thumb cut off. I see this all the time, so be very mindful you don't stick your thumb out like this. This is not the claw. This is you getting your fingers cut off. Look what goes on there. They just run right towards the cutting blade. Yeah! That's like the lady tied to the log in the sawmill, and it's just going into its certain death. Everybody does this, and the reason for that is because you're more dexterous that way. That's the way you have a natural grip on things. This is a little more awkward, so you have to train your body to do this. And what I want you to do, especially when you're first starting, is I want you to remind yourself every second chop. So you're going to go chop, chop, claw. So check, how's my claw? You're chop, chop, claw. Recheck your claw. Did it get out of whack? Some people hold their claw like this and send it through. That's another good way to get your thumb cut off. Some people curl their fingers over too far. That's a good way to get your knuckles cut off. Okay? So you want to roll that all the way back onto your fingertips so that this is a little bit of a guard right there, and it's not too far and ready to get chopped off. So right there. Chop, chop, check your claw. Chop, chop, check your claw. That's what you're going to do in the beginning if you're just learning how to hold your claw safely. Now let's look at putting these two things together. We will put some celery in harm's way, and we're going to use this to chop through some stuff. And I recommend maybe if you're learning how to use your knife for the first few belts, always buy an extra whole bunch of celery and run through it with your knife. Practice your knife skills. Let this head of celery sacrifice itself to the chopping gods for you. And you can throw it in your compost later in the belts. We'll see about making our own soup stocks with such things. But a couple of heads of celery for your finger's well-being is well worth it. So here it is coming together. Tip down, all right? You got your claw and you got a nice firm grip on this thing. You run it through, and then you size it up, and you run it through again. You can just push it through, and push it through, and push it through. And you're basically trying to make even slices like that. The reason you want nice even slices like that is so that they cook at the same rate. Pieces that are big and small next to each other, one's going to burn while the other one gets undercooked. So go for the same size pieces, and just go nice and slow at first. You know, you can get right over top of the knife so you can see on both sides, and cut through nice and easy, nice and slow. See? Nice and slow. No problems. There's no panic here. You're not in a race. Not yet, anyways. You want to get the motion down nice and smoothly, and then you can start speeding it up. Once you got it down, then you can start rocking it out faster and faster as your knife skills improve. But the number one thing is chop, chop, check your claw, make sure it's right. Get your ingredients cut up to roughly the same size. Now, I don't mean that you need to get in there with your razor and fine-tune everything and match everything up to a millimeter of each other. Just roughly the same size. And week in and week out, you're going to get so much practice chopping stuff up. It's going to fall in the line, and you know you're going to eat it later in the week, and you're going to eat your mistakes and say, you know what, I'm going to spend a little more attention on my chop next time and get that more evenly cut. So that is you chopping things up into bite-sized pieces. Now let's talk about mincing. Let's say you chopped up a little pile of celery and you want to mince it up. So this is the second move in your knife skills. And like I said, we're chopping and mincing, so this is it. Again, tip down. This time you put your hand safely on top of the blade and you just bring it down. You rock it up and back and forth across the ingredients like this. See that? I'll do it without the guard so you can really see. And you just go through and then you come back around. And these little semi-arcs, just like this, right? And these little ingredients are gonna try and get away from you. You're not gonna let them. You see what they're trying to do. You pull them right back in the center where you think you're going, and then you give them another round. Now just start a little bit slowly at first, while they're still big pieces so they don't go flying everywhere on you. And then once they start to break down, you can get after them a little bit faster. You see? Get them down like that, and just wipe it off with your finger, scrape them up into the center. And so how finely minced do you want something? That's entirely up to you. This just wants to be in a sprinkly phase, right? So just whatever you want as a seasoning that's going to sprinkle on top of something, because generally when you're mincing, you're saying you are going to be a seasoning. So that's up to you. That's all part of learning to cook without recipes, is deciding, you know, how chunky you like things and how much seasoning they impart when you mince them up. So that's stuff you're going to discover all throughout the cooking process. So you don't need a solid answer on that right now, and there are no wrong answers. So just mince it up, try it out, see what you like. You'll find your way with no problem. So those are our 2 knife skills, chopping and mincing. Mind your claw. Mind your claw. I'll see you during the cooks.